Okay, cool. What's up, y'all? I'm Terry Berry.
And I'm Michael Nelder.
And we are here with No ID.
You know?
And we have another special guest for you guys. We have
Jason McGee.
Jason McGee is the plug here in LA.
Yes. Look, people used to be people tell me when I have a haircut, I look like your brother, your younger brother. So yeah. So that's how I'm like, you know what I'm saying? It's an energy thing. Yeah.
Originally, I'm from Bakersfield, California, which is like about, for those that don't know, it's about 2 hours north of Los Angeles. No, actually, I moved here for theater. Okay. Theater was always, theater was the thing that I fell in love with, so I went to school here back in '98, graduated in '01, and but music was always something that I did, especially gospel music specifically. It was always something that I did growing up in my grandfather's church. Mom was a director, and so it was kind of in my blood, and it was interesting, upon graduation, like I thought theater was going to be my path, and all of a sudden music started kind of taking over and being the thing that I realized I loved doing. So I had a little talk with God, and I was like, all right, this is what you want me to do. You got to make it really good for me. Absolutely. Like if I'm going to switch reels, if I'm going to switch my plan for your plan, then your plan has got to be good for me. So, and it's been pretty good. JD Box is an old family nickname, so people are like, why did you name it that? I'm like, my uncle, who's like a dad to me, he gave me that nickname when I was a kid. And so it's called JD Box Entertainment. JD Box Entertainment is basically my it's my music contracting company. It's where I basically, almost like an agent, but more of a contractor. I contract in singers for different events around the city, different events around the country, make sure I got like singers kind of like placed in everywhere. So it was a company that, like, coming up, I was always hired to do all these different things, and I was like, I need a company where it's my turn to hire. It's my turn to look for talent. It's my turn to place people in these great gigs and put some money in their pockets.
I looked on like your resume. You worked with like Madonna and Nicki and Jimmy Kimmel, like these crazy like public figures and celebrities. Yeah. But I know that gospel is your background. Yeah. Like that's where you're rooted. How were you able to stay grounded in what you believe and keep your morals and faith, but still be able to appeal to these artists who are more on the mainstream scale?
That's a really good question, by the way. That's a really good question, because nobody ever really asks that. They'll celebrate you for doing it, but nobody ever asks, like, how did you do it? Honestly, it was real, because it's always been about God for me. It's always been about like that sounds cheesy and corny or whatever, but the reality is it really has been. It's always been like I've always been very confident in being Jason. I never wanted to be anyone else. Like everyone always says, oh, I want to do something different. Different is you just being you, because there's no two versions of the same person.
This is so
different
true.
is just do you.
Yeah.
And so for me it was because I realized, like, one day I realized it was my faith that got me here. It was God that got me here, and I'm not all of a sudden about to turn and go the other way, because I've known this is now the time to dig even further into God. And so keeping my faith, honestly, it wasn't hard. You know what I mean? Like I told God a long time ago, you can trust me. If you open the door for me, I will go through it, and you can trust me to always represent you wherever I am. So that's really what's kept me.
He opened them doors.
Did he ever?
He said, okay, all right, here you go.
Yo, he opened hallways. You know what I mean? He opened stadiums, man. The biggest sacrifice you have to make in staying true to who you are is loneliness. That is the biggest sacrifice you have to make. You will spend so much more time by yourself when you have dedicated to just being who you are, dedicated yourself to being just who you are. You spend, like, it's hard. And people don't realize that sounds small, but loneliness is literally the thing that leads to depression. Yes. Loneliness can lead to suicide. Yes. Loneliness can lead to making very, very, very bad personal choices, giving into your vices, your addictions. Loneliness can literally lead to all of those things. So when I say you sacrifice being with people and you kind of like err on the side of loneliness because you will always stay true to who you are, that's a big sacrifice. Yeah. So that's part of the process. But what I had to do a long time ago was realize, like, I had a conversation with Kirk Franklin one time, and I was like, yo, man, I'm just so lonely. Like, I'm so lonely. Like, I feel like I'm always by myself. He was like, loneliness is because you haven't realized that God is enough. That's what he said to me. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, because you feel alone, you've not realized that God is always there with you, so you're actually never physically alone.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, man, you're right. Yeah. I'd say a significant struggle or setback for me was, I don't know if it was, I think my suicidal year was tough for me. Like, it was 2006. This tattoo actually represents it. It was in 2006. It was a really hard year for me, and it took me a second to kind of recover from that. And what's crazy is it was all because of loneliness.
Wow.
I felt really alone at that time, and I felt like I had no one. And it was a really down time for me. And I think my ultimate setbacks have been as a result of feeling alone a lot. I've made very bad choices. You know what I mean? I've given in to a lot of my vices, and I've said yes to things that I should always say no to. And I feel like in a lot of areas I prolonged my blessings from happening. But you know, as gracious as God is, he's given, you know, he's held my blessings there for me until I was ready to receive them. But ultimately, that was making bad decisions in my times of loneliness. I think have been huge setbacks for me.
How did you find yourself getting out of that space?
Answering the call to purpose, finally, like, realizing what my purpose was, and realizing ultimately what I was supposed to do in the world and what I was supposed to represent in the world, kind of yanks you out of that space. But it's not to say that space is far off either. So one bad move, one bad turn, one missed prayer, one missed moment for a guy like me, whose mind is always going, that it can always send you back to that place. It's very easy. Hey, y'all.
We busy. Dang. Y'all so rude.
How dare you fly?
Just want y'all to be in the sky like that. What was I going to say?
Right.
Yeah, man. Hold on. We gotta stop.
Yeah, they really about to circle around. All right, so we had to take a quick breather. Here at No ID, we follow energy, and it was a real moment that happened. We touched on, you know, being in that lonely space and being at that rock bottom point. But Jason has a story that's amazing. I'm gonna let him just tell it about his story about being in that time. I'm gonna stop talking.
I know you're all right. So this is my suicidal story. So I've told the story a couple times, and it somehow always still means a lot every time I tell it. It was 2006, and I had the backstory is I got into a car accident that was really, really, really bad, and thankfully I walked out of it okay. But it left me sad, it left me a little lonely, but ultimately it left me really broke. And my account was negative $816. It's like the magic number. And I remember driving home, and I was down. Like, I was really, 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 really down because I felt like God had forgotten about me. You know what I mean? It was the one time in my life I can say I was actually very angry at God. Like, I was really angry because I felt like he had left me by myself. I felt like he had just forsaken me, if you will. And I'm like, I've been directing your choirs, I've been doing all of this stuff, and how, like, you would leave me like this. You know, my account's negative. I got $7 in my pocket, and I don't know how I'm gonna pay bills and XYZ. So I'm crying. I'm planning on how I'm gonna do the suicide. I'm in my head writing the letter to my mother that explains to her why I've decided to make this choice and how sorry I am that I made this choice. And I pray that, you know, she doesn't think that I'm gonna go to hell. You know, you're thinking those things, but of course, even those thoughts make it worse. Yeah. So my old apartment, you have to walk by the mailbox in order to get up to the apartment. And I opened the mailbox, and in there, no joke, was a check for $838. It was, and what makes that, and what was crazy was 3 months before that, I had paid a ticket. And this day, 3 months later, they decided to send that money back to me because I wasn't supposed to pay the ticket. The day that I'm going to kill myself, the Lord allows it. And I always say that God is actually waiting for you at the end of your rope. Like, that day was the end of my rope. Like, people always say, you're not going to commit it, otherwise you would have done it. But the reality is, the Lord knew that I really was. God knew that I was serious, and this was the day that he chose to rescue me. God answers prayers that you don't even pray. He answers your heart. He knows when your heart is broken. He knows when your heart is weak. He knows when your heart is sad. And that day he chose to answer my heart of what I needed. And so I went, and what makes the number so significant, I was able to deposit the money and still pull out $20 so brother could get some food, You
can still eat.
And so I just, it's just as specific as God was to operate the world, to create the world in 6 days, like I've told you before, like the way grass grows, the way planets orbit around the sun, the way daylight savings works, the way hair, he understands the hairs that are growing out of you, like he knows the number, the way eyes change, just the way God is so specific about the world is just as specific as he is about your life. And the moment you tap into that, you realize that you never have to kill yourself. You don't, because it's going to be okay. That money, but money is not the answer. It wasn't money. Money is the example of what was going on, right. But that wasn't what it really was. I thought God forgot, and the moment I realized that God never forgets, you don't get that low anymore. You have bad days, but you don't get that low anymore. Itself was a phenomenal question because I actually have an answer to it. Oh my God. I would say roughly about 8 years ago, maybe. I'm not sure whenever Jordan Sparks released the song Battlefield. I went to the Grove one day and I saw Jordan Sparks singing on this massive stage, and I wasn't sure how the Grove built this stage. And for those that don't know, the Grove is a huge shopping center here in Los Angeles, and it's in the heart of LA. It's literally made Forbes top 10 shopping malls in America. Like, that's how successful it is. So I saw Jordan Sparks singing at the Grove like 8 years ago, and I literally said, I was like, one day I'm going to be on that stage. Hadn't started a choir, hadn't started a business, hadn't started anything. I said, one day I'm going to be on that stage. Got called to do a Christmas event, right? The budget was really small. It was tiny. It was the total budget was literally less than what I charge as a director for me to pay 10 singers.
Wow.
It was tiny. But what they said to me was, they're like, yeah, it's, some great people going to be in the room, and the owner of the Grove is going to be there. And I was like, excuse me? And the Lord reminded me, he was like, take it. Took it. Got to shake hands with this man. This man says, you guys were amazing. Oh, another thing, don't let money be the reason why you do the work. Don't ever let money be the reason. If you accept the gig, approach every gig like it was paying you the top dollar. Because the moment a dollar determines your work ethic, you're already broke.
Yep.
You're already broke.
Come on with it.
So you are dignifying the stage before you even unconnected to money. Had nothing.
That's a mind shift.
You have to, though, because I knew something in that was right. Shake hands with this man. He says, you guys were great. You should come and perform on one of our properties. I was like, all right. So I emailed the man. I knew I wasn't ready yet. We get invited back to do the 10-year anniversary of the Americana, which is the sister mall to the Grove, owned by the same people. So we do that. The owner's there again. He's like, hey, man, what happened? We need to make this happen. Well, fast forward to literally 2 days ago. 2 days ago, we did two 45-minute sets on the exact same stage that Jordan Sparks did, literally in front of the biggest crowd they've ever had for shows. We headlined our own show 2 days ago, and they said we were the largest crowd. We blew every other crowd out of the water. We had the least amount of time of promo. We're the only thing that doesn't have an album out. It was literally nobody but God. But what did I do? I rehearsed, I worked, I did what I was supposed to do, but I just knew I was gonna get there. Now, not only that, the Grove has given me my own day once a month to do gospel music.
Look at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Y'all.
Yeah.
Appreciate y'all. Thank
I'm
you.
like, thank you so much for having us.
Okay, obviously.
Anytime. No, anytime. It's fine.
Well, that is it for today. No ID. This was an amazing interview. I hope you guys can pull from it, find something. If you're lonely and you need help, seek on God.
Yes.
Maybe just take that time to listen to yourself, But thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be back with some more fire and inspirational videos.